Mr. Bansal will speak on the challenges and opportunities for businesses in a rapidly changing economic environment. I had a word with Mr. Bansal prior to today's presentation, and he indicated to me that he would prefer an interactive session, so we are expecting Q&A, sir. When asked about angel investors, a wise man once said, "There's one thing that angel investors will not say, and that is, I really want to support entrepreneurs, but only those that are going to make me money." Well, if you need to know more about angel investing and social impact investing, you know who to speak to. A brief about Mr. Bansal. He's the CEO of the Wealth and Investment Management Division of Barclays Bank in India. Under his leadership, Barclays has become one of the leading private banks in the country. Mr. Bansal has a deep understanding of various businesses and strong connects with business families in India and overseas. His entrepreneurial spirit and focus on execution has been instrumental in building a robust business for the bank. Prior to joining Barclays in 2007, Mr. Bansal was the head of private banking in the Southeast Asia region for ICICI Bank in Singapore. He was part of the core team responsible for building and growing ICICIdirect.com. Many of us here are using the platform today. May I request our chapter ExCom member, CA Jagan Naidu, to accompany Mr. Bansal onto the dais.
Okay, let the logistics take care in the next couple of minutes. It's a privilege and honor to be here among this august audience. And I have come back to Bahrain after a gap of 10 years. I see a significant change and development around what I see. At the same time, the world is equally changing. And when I was given this privilege to be here with you, I was asked that what is the topic that I should speak. And the natural choice for wealth managers is to come and talk about what are various things happening in the wealth world, private banking world, what are the products to invest, which are the markets to invest. But I thought that would be too boring for many of you. So, because you know already a lot about that. So let me touch upon the basic of creation of wealth. Where is the wealth getting created? Where do we create the wealth? What is the fountainhead of wealth creation? How many of you are working for business families or doing your own business? So I think I'm midst of lots of bankers. So the true the basic wealth creation happens in and around business. Let the businesses grow, wealth creation is given. And when we talk about this, let's bring the reason, let's put the context as to how we as a chartered accountant, as a community, we as bankers, we as auditors, we as assurance providers, we as control and governance providers, we as CFOs, CEOs, whatever role we are in, or maybe an entrepreneur or helping an entrepreneur in whichever role, how can we help in this journey for wealth creation? And that is the topic of my subject. At the same time, let's also understand what has changed so much in the last 5 to 10 years. And this changing scenario, and how we can play a meaningful role in whichever part of the world we are, whichever industry we are, or whatever role we are. And here I thought, let me set the context first. So when we talk about this wealth creation around entrepreneurship, what are the essential ingredients for an entrepreneur or a business to succeed? We generally talk a lot about somebody having a phenomenal idea, great innovation. That's the starting point. That comes as a thought in our mind. And we obviously give a lot of importance to ideas and innovation. And I'll touch upon that where does this ideas and innovation come from? Very often we see a different perspective than what reality is. And I thought, let me emphasize upon that. But equally important is the importance of applying the idea in a commercial context. And I think many of us have got a larger role to play in that. So we meet a lot of people who have got tremendous ideas. They've got phenomenal innovators. technocrats, research and development scientists, but most of their products remain in labs. Ideas sometimes gets patented, sometimes even do not even get patented, and it just remains. The gap is not the production of ideas or number of ideas. The gap is applying those ideas in commercial context and making it really viable. And that is where the role of strategy or the role of making the idea work in a commercial context. Application of idea is today far more in greater demand than idea itself. There are a lot of innovators, but I think we need lot many people who can apply those innovation, and that's where I think applied economics is far more important, as we have just seen Dr. Vasudevan speaking about it, that it's application which is missing beyond merely the ideas, and that applies in financial world as well. But at the same time, when you have a great idea and you have the ability, your ability or your emphasis on application of idea in the commercial context, the biggest missing link is the provision of risk capital. Who is going to take the risk of making that idea work? And this is where a lot of players plays a very important role, be it an angel investor, seed investor, venture capital fund, private equity fund, public markets, debt markets, whichever way you look at it. That has to be ultimately coming together to make that idea take off from where it originated. But all that is given when you have a great idea, when you have someone who has brought the commercial context and who is willing to apply it, and there is availability of risk capital as well. While each of these three itself is a big challenge, the biggest challenge in my view is none of these three. The biggest challenge in my view is the execution. And very often, people are not trained adequately on execution. I work with a lot of business families. We are supposed to be working very closely on private side. I sit on quite a few family boards. I'm personally an angel investor, having already chipped in my hard-earned money in more than 20 companies. I have mentored a lot many budding entrepreneurs as part of my passion. But what I realized that there is a lot of emphasis being given to idea, application, and risk capital. But there is completely, I would say, there's a huge amount of underinvestment in execution. A lot of young guys, MBAs from best of the business schools, they come back and say, I got this great idea. And you put them here, and they will be able to speak tremendously about their idea, how that idea is going to change the world. And you give them risk capital. 6 months down the line, a year down the line, you do some review with them, and you will find that that idea was very good because the PowerPoint presentation was great, the communication skills was great. But if you really ask them to really fold their sleeves and work on the ground, be it the grassroots person to implement it, many of them are not adequately trained, or their attitude for execution is missing. And this is the biggest challenge that we have today in this generation of the world. They are great ideators, but very poor implementers. And I think we are overpaying for ideas. We are underpaying for execution. And somehow we need to correct it. And you will see it, you would be seeing it very often in your own business or your own corporate context. Very often we reward the people who speak the most, who are able to bring those ideas, but the people who really work hard on the ground, where the rubber meets the road, we generally ignore the importance of that. And most businesses, let me tell you, my friends, I think the days of rewarding knowledge carriers is gone. And it's a very, very emphatic statement. I can share it with you. Knowledge is no more a differentiator in this world. It's available in plenty. Mr. Google can give you everything. There are enough encyclopedia of knowledge available. There are no knowledge barriers in the today's world. So let's not take knowledge as the only differentiator. What can differentiate really is the application of knowledge. And here again, you can relate it very clearly to the application part of the knowledge, which is missing in abundance. And That's a skill gap today we are living with. Even with our own community chartered accountants, you will find I have interviewed good number of rank holders for a lot of our internal position, and you put them in the context. I said, give me this particular context, and they find it absolutely difficult to apply because they have not applied that knowledge while they have studied. Unfortunately, we are producing lot many dummies, by the way, not to be recorded. Why? Because we are only producing knowledge. We are not building skills. And that's not only for chartered accountants. Look at MBAs. I think there is a bigger skill gap in MBAs than chartered accountants. At least our profession, today we get the 3 years compulsory training, and that brings the knowledge and skill together. Most of the MBAs today, many of the best of the business schools are only providing knowledge. And that's the reason we see this knowledge versus skill gap tremendously hurting the economy and wealth creation. I have already spoken to you about what role idea plays and what role execution plays. It's execution you need to start paying more emphasis than idea. And let me tell you in a business context, is your strategy a trade secret? Is it? Anybody raising hands, the strategy could be a trade secret? In any environment you look at it, you look at corporate environment, family environment, your strategy cannot remain a trade secret. The moment you have to start implementing your strategy, everyone will know. We have to communicate our strategy. The vision, the strategy, the big picture, everyone has to know. If our strategy is such an open secret, what is our trade secret then? The trade secret is execution. Keep the DNA of execution so powerful that let your strategy become public. And it's anyway public whether you realize it or not. And this is where I think we need to start playing an important role. In whichever job, whichever role, whichever part of the society we are in. The third and very important aspect, and I talked about availability of risk capital. First and foremost, I think this applies in almost every global economy. First, what is the challenge? Availability of capital. But I have added a word risk also along with it because risk capital plays a very important role. Capital obviously important, but once the risk capital is there and business is successful, there are enough people to really chase those guys to provide capital. Availability of risk capital is becoming a serious issue for two reasons. One, because the ideas are not being made adequately bankable. The people who are generally having ideas, sometimes technocrats, sometimes people in very early stage of their career, who have got a lot of passion to make it happen, they don't have credibility. And in markets like India, and maybe this part of the world, Middle East is no different, we ask him, how many times have you succeeded? And the chances are that this fellow would have started for the first time, and maybe if he started previous summer, somewhere he would have failed. And we do not give adequate attention to his experience of a failure. Rather, we treat it as a stigma. If you go to US, particularly in the Bay Area, the Sand Hill Road, the Palo Alto streets, and if you really ask, if you go through the venture capital exercise and they ask you to fill certain basic questions, one of the questions they ask you to fill is, how many times have you failed? And if you have failed a couple of times, the chances are that you will get funding this time. But possibly here, we take it other way around. And that's what we need to change. So basically, making our ideas bankable, it requires a lot of structuring of how do we really present the idea to make it happen in the financial context. The bankers, the venture capitalists, the angel investors, and possibly even the private equity investors, they always are used to seeing a particular way in a particular idea in a particular way. And the guy who is passionate about idea, he doesn't care how it should be. They are more passionate individuals than basically process oriented people. And very often, there is a gap where some of us can play a very important role from the idea, from the business, or the SME, MME, whatever sector that you are in. make the idea bankable in the context so that it can reach to the right set of risk capital investors and they can really make it work. Whether we bring this knowledge of idea to the knowledge of, to the venture capitalist, or we somehow from a product which is an SME product, we really make it happen so that a bank can lend it. I think there is a lot of gap. People have to play an important role in this, in the stage to make that idea bankable. Very often there is enough risk capital, there are enough ideas, but the bridge between the two is missing. And that's where we need to make some ecosystem connect. I'll talk about the role of seed and angel and venture capitalists can play in this. But let me first touch upon the other two important aspects. The control and governance. I think many of you are very, very familiar with this. I don't need to really emphasize about what the role of control and governance in the current context plays. I have seen often that businesses do not scale or do not get adequately recognized, not for their business, but because they do not have adequate control and governance, because they have not come from that attitude itself. So first and foremost, we need to get the attitude right that this is a very important aspect of business. Okay, the owner understands it, but he doesn't have time. Then we need to basically give them right process, tools, skill set, and more importantly, we need to ensure that the cost of compliance for them is reasonable. We have moved in a world where the cost of compliance has become extremely high. So you have choices to make whether to comply or not. We need to really make it practical. US is considered to be one of the best, I would say, in this particular aspect of doing business. But if you really see cost of compliance there, it's pathetically poor. I would rate it somewhere on the other extreme. There are other markets where the cost of compliance is fairly low, but if you seek the global investors in those businesses, they find it extremely difficult to invest because they are seeking the compliance of a global of the extreme level, which is not even worth to do in those markets. We have to strike a right balance, but at the same time, it's important that we really help the businesses by making these businesses robust enough from control and governance perspective. And I can talk about it. So I think we will see many SMEs, early stage companies, lot of mid-market companies now setting up compliance function itself, which was missing. It was supposed to be largely a domain of banking and financial sector. But now I think even the companies need to have a lot. And I think it's good because that gives the multiplier from EPS to valuation is equivalent to EPS into P. The higher P if you want to expect in your business, it will largely come out of getting the compliance right, getting the corporate governance right. Last but not the least, and these I'm saying setting as challenges, let me talk about opportunities. What actually happens is most of the businesses are good, but they're not great. Why? Because they are not able to adequately scale up. Very often if you talk to some of these companies, particularly I'm saying in the Bay Area, from day one they start thinking global. Even if they lose money with that big dream. I'm not going to support each and every such bold moves, but at the same time, the very mentality is that global, my market is global. Very often, in this part of the world, in India, Africa, and Middle East, when the new businesses are started, they start with the local flavor, which is good, but then these businesses needs to be adequately scaled. And those scale comes first out of global vision, and then comes out of execution at a global level. And there are various examples. Can we take the business, can we make this business, instead of a product sales approach to a SaaS model, can we take it on a cloud? Can we bring a marketplace rather than setting up an e-commerce portal for our own product? Can we provide them the linkages from the global system? So many people who have got businesses and the people who have the network to take it global, they are not combined together. So you have got a phenomenal product. You are very good in doing what you are doing, in whichever market you are, but you need to now go and reach out to 50 more countries. You as an entrepreneur at the age of 35 or 30 or 40, you haven't traveled the whole world. There are many of you who would be having those linkages, can't you just plug this requirement from here and plug it there? So we need now a good amount of ecosystem play to happen of global networks. Whether it happens out of TIE, I am also one of the TIE charter members, whether it can happen out of angel networks, whether it can happen out of these business and industry forums, but here this is the role that we all need to play. If we are not playing it, we are not doing economic and social service to our global community. But at the same time, while I have emphasized a lot on challenges, let me now talk about the opportunities in the current context. Okay, I will wrap it up in another 7 to 10 minutes. So what are those opportunities which we have? First and foremost, let me talk about this opportunity of ideas and innovation itself. Very often we want to copy the developed world for ideas and opportunities. Is that world right? Shall we look at the developed world for ideas and opportunities? Let me tell you, first and foremost ingredient for success or for idea is randomness. Ideas cannot never come on the left side of the brain. It's a diversity, it is the randomness, it is inefficiency, it is chaos which leads to jugaad, which leads to innovation. A too structured an economy, too structured a thought process, too logical a person, he will never be creative. So when we look back markets like India and we start blaming that India mein kuch nahi ho sakta, how many of people you don't understand Hindi? If you can raise your hands. Okay, there are few of you who can't understand. So I will translate if I use the word. India cannot produce these kind of ideas in innovation. Let me tell you, markets like India, markets like Africa, market like Middle East may not be that market because it's a very different market, where the trigger for wealth creation is because most of the economies are well served by the oil. So very fact that they're not so pressurized to create wealth otherwise is a challenge, and that's a challenge for these markets actually in a way. So here, basic foundation for ideas and innovation, we have it. Inefficiency, chaos and jugaad is very much part of our culture because there is no other way to survive. So take it as a blessing in disguise rather than complaining about it. Let me also touch upon this, and which is actually a derivative of point number 1, that it is environmental challenge actually which leads to successful business. When you are pushed to the wall, you put your best to make it happen. Is it? It's not true? You may not believe it. Let me put a context to it. There are certain communities globally which are far more successful in business. I'm not talking about the holistic way, but there are few communities which are successful in business than the rest. Let's bring it from Indian context. Any community? Sindhis, Marwadis, Gujaratis, okay? Do you know why these communities are so successful? I'm not trying to demean the others are not successful, but I'm just setting some context, so I'm bringing a metaphor out of it. I'm not trying to proliferate their success of these communities. Why they're so successful? What is common between these 3 names that you just talked about? Jugaad, push to wall, adversities. There is one common link, ability to take risk. When do you take a maximum risk? When you have nothing to lose. Do you know about Sindhi community, what happened? During this India-Pakistan separation, they came as literally refugees to country, and what will happen to that community? They have nothing to lose. They already lost whatever they had. What happened to that community? They created global trading empire because they all went around in different parts of the world. And today you see Sindhis dominating the global trade, not because of they are so intelligent, others were not, but they had nothing to lose. They could take the risk and create a business world out of nothing. And that is the power of that community. So please do not take these kind of, when you are pushed to the wall, as the most unfortunate moment. Maybe that's an awakening for the community for that particular idea to take shape. Look at Marwaris. Which part of the world they come from? Desert, which is no different than this land where I'm standing here. What is the common there? They can't eat sand. There's nothing you can produce in those days. Today, thanks to irrigation, you can produce some of these things. What will they do? They will go out searching for wherever there's economic activity. And they created business empire. Out of that, misfortune. Gujaratis, most of the Gujaratis, when I talk about Kutchis. Kutch. What will they eat? Salt. So they have no option. This whole Palanpuri communities, which rules the diamond world. It's come out of what? Out of no economic activity in their home region. I don't want to quote other communities globally, but even if you look at Jews for a matter, that's come out of whatever reason. So what I'm trying to tell you is that let's not, we are more interested in trying to create, take some examples in a manner which, so let's look at these environmental challenges. Do we give enough challenges to our own people? Do we really expose? We are not. Let's do some more. Let's be pushed to that. Even if we talk about this whole wealth creation happens out of ecosystem for entrepreneurs. What is our role? Let's play some meaningful role in whatever manner in creating this wealth for the global community. Whether you want to play the role of the idea or innovator, whether you want to apply the idea to in the commercial context, whether you want to apply that idea in the context of what is called risk capital, you want to become an angel investor, venture capitalist, whatever you want to become, or you want to simply help somebody execute that idea better or connect that from ecosystem perspective. Let's play a meaningful role. Often when I sit on various family boards, people talk about philanthropy. What is the best form of philanthropy? Create jobs. Give it to yourself. Serve the society. Educate more and more people. Let me tell you, when you talk about philanthropy, whether it's health, education, poverty alleviation in whichever manner, don't you feel there is a feeling that I've given something to somebody? Oh, I gave him 10,000 rupees. I gave him $50,000. I did that, all that. If you provide a job to somebody, he takes care of all those things very well. You don't need to train, you don't need to take care of his health, education, or anything for that matter. Everything is being taken care of. And where does the job creation happen? Economic activity happens out of business. So where should your pie go of philanthropy? More businesses. And that I can share with you. The secret of philanthropy, if you want to go for success philanthropy, in whichever manner you want, create economic activity. If you can't create, help somebody else create. And play a meaningful role in whatever people are doing about economic activity. Let's also talk about our profession. I think let's also get some more role here. And I think we have enough role to play in that, is to providing this control and governance framework right. This world, I mean, if you see some of the challenges, these have largely arisen out of control and governance failures. People have become quite, I'd say, ignorant about it, or rather they didn't focus enough about it. I think there is a role for us to play, whether we talk about independent directors. I think many of us would be sitting on the boards of companies. Are we really playing our role? Let's do the introspection. We can provide the right assurance, we can provide the right compliance framework, because all these things ultimately help in building the ecosystem right for entrepreneurs to grow, for wealth to grow, for jobs to create, and for the need for philanthropy to come down. And particularly when we are in this part of the world where a lot of people follow Sharia law. Okay? Don't you feel the best use of that capital could be to provide the risk capital or capital to businesses so that the economic activity gets, and it becomes a sustained activity? I'll come to that. If you talk about the current context, and I thought let me at least bring something, there's a lot of pain in this world. I'm talking about economic pain. I'm not talking about general. Let me confine myself to the field that I'm related to at least. There's a lot of pain, and that's because of a lot of businesses are not doing well. Banks are suffering because of it, because they can't recover their money. A lot of NPAs, a lot of consolidation. And I think NPA resolution, consolidation, and getting that capital back to the market, resolving those cases itself could be something that we can play a meaningful role. If you come to right now markets, as just now Dr. Vasudevan was talking about, I think we have something to contribute. Let's resolve some of these cases. Let's help them. Can we really get into a strategic buyout? Can we revive that economy? Or even if we can help the entrepreneurs to somehow settle it and get back to his second venture, third venture. I think this concept of serial entrepreneurship, and serial entrepreneurs flourish only out of repetitive successes or repetitive one or two other failures. So we need to really rebuild the confidence and they can again go back, and so insolvencies have to be a little more proactive and we have to just settle it. We can't really, I mean, this is, somebody has to take a risk to make it happen. If that fellow has taken a risk and not worked out, maybe let's revisit that. Last but not the least, I would urge each one of you that we are fortunate enough to be sitting in this 5-star hotel in such a great economy. I would urge each one of you to look at least social impact investing. Many of you would be already familiar, but if you are not, let me just touch in the next 30 seconds. It's basically investing in a venture which is with profit, but with a large amount of social motive. Your returns could be less, but I can tell you that is far more philanthropic than philanthropy in itself. Because ultimately, the true test of philanthropy lies in making it sustained. If you can't make it sustained, obviously that has got no meaning out of it. So I would urge each one of you, in whichever part of the world, whichever area that you feel, it's important that you make it really sustained by investing in social impact investing. And this goes very well with most of the religious communities that we see across the world. It goes very well with the Islamic fundamentals of investing and sharing with the society at large. It goes very well with most of the other religions as well. And I think it really brings a larger impact in the society. And let's at least bring this positive change through wealth creation in the right manner. So here is the end of my topic, my friends. The environment is full of opportunities. And most of these opportunities lies hidden below the challenges. Let's only change the lens. Thank you so much. I open it for Q&A for whatever 5 minutes that I have.